Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Financial Issues this morning. We're live today, Thursday, February 6th. Folks, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. We are trying to get Shana connected with us. We had it's kind of a crazy power outage down in her Texas studio, kind of right before the show started. Not sure how this stuff happens, folks. Sometimes it does, but we're trying to get Shana on as quickly as we can, so just stay tuned for that. But I appreciate you all joining us today nonetheless. We've got a full show planned, and we're excited for it, so make sure to get your call queued up. We are planning to get Shana in here in the next couple minutes or so. Phone number is 610-363-1110. Again, 610-363-1110. And of course, if you're listening to the program during a time where it is not airing live, obviously, if you try to call in, you won't be able to get to anybody. But that's why you need to listen to the show live every day at 9:05 Eastern Time. So make sure that you do that, of course. But those of you who are listening live, obviously, you found us. So congratulations. Good to be here with you all this morning. Folks, the scripture tells us in Luke chapter 19, verse 26, the scripture says, I tell you that everyone who has, more will be given, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Folks, I know Shana's going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program, God willing, if we can get her on here. But what a great reminder that, this is not necessarily talking about wealth and material things, but what it's talking about really is having what really matters. And what really matters is more and more of Christ. And so as you're looking to build your investments and to honor God with the money that he has given you, never forget what matters most. That if you have Christ, you have everything, even if you don't have much else. And if you have everything else but don't have Christ, you actually have nothing in the final analysis. So make sure that your heart is right with Christ first and foremost. I know Shana will be talking about that a little more later on. Guys, do we have Shana yet or not quite yet? I'm going to keep riffing otherwise, but if we've got Shana, we'll get her in here. Otherwise, folks, let's jump to the markets as we begin here. So yesterday, the markets, they were somewhat mixed. They were also relatively flat, unsure of themselves after some disappointing big tech earnings, not unlike a middle school student just before a dance, something like that. The markets tend to have those little kid tendencies often. By midday, all three indices hanging around the flat line. There was conflicting news yesterday, so there were some bummer earnings reports. Google's most powerful AI model also was open to all users, which made some people excited in the tech sector. Markets weren't sure which direction to go. By mid-afternoon, they did break their heads above water, and they were able to finish that way. By Tuesday's closing bell, it was another winning day for the major indices. The Dow Jones was up about 0.7%. The S&P 500 up about 0.4%, and the NASDAQ was up 0.17%. So that's what the markets were looking like yesterday. This morning, all relatively positive right now, as I'm seeing. Let me give my screen a quick refresh. And I do hear Shana in my ear. I know she doesn't hear me, but I think we're getting her on here, folks. While we're doing that here, real quickly, the NASDAQ is barely above the flat line in pre-market trading.
Seth, I think she's ready to rock
and I'm going to hand it off to Shana here. Shana, can you hear me? Nothing yet. We'll get Shana in just a moment.
All
here,
right,
folks.
I was wrong. I lied, guys.
The
Sorry about
S&P,
that.
that's all right. The S&P 500 futures trending upwards about 0.25%, and the Dow Jones futures up right around 0.1% this morning. So interesting stuff there as we're seeing this morning here, folks. We've seen a busy week from the Trump camp. We've also seen a rather busy week in some other areas also here. But I did want to share just a couple things with you. We did see Disney report earnings yesterday. So the earnings per share, a little bit higher than what was expected. Their revenue was only slightly higher than what was expected. I think the markets were, for the most part, a little bit disappointed with this. There was a small drop in Disney Plus streaming subscribers, which personally I'm a big fan of dropping Disney Plus because I think that it could be a waste of money if you're looking to perhaps live within your means. A good place to start would be those pesky streaming services that might be nice for entertainment value but don't actually offer really anything of substance. So if you're looking to live within your means and you have a Disney Plus or a Netflix account, that might be the first one to go. Just saying there. But we did see some earnings yesterday. We'll get some more coming out today as well. Let's see, guys. Do we have Shana on yet, or are we going to still riff here? And we can keep riffing.
We're still working on it, man. But you're doing
Sounds
great.
good. Sounds good. I appreciate that so much. Well, I'll tell you what. All of you in the chat, boy, I would love to hear from you all saying hello this morning. Nathan, thanks for that comment. Great at shooting from the hip during technical problems. Sometimes you have to do that, man. Sometimes that's just the way this goes. So hopefully, when I shoot from the hip, I'm not blind firing and I don't start, shooting at things that don't need to be shot at. But anyways, interesting stuff happening here for sure. One thing that we did see yesterday that I thought was fascinating, and Sam, I'm going to take these news headlines here because I know you're working on getting Shana in here. We did see yesterday, so Trump did have a meeting with President Xi Jinping. This comes, of course, days after China responded to Trump's tariffs with tariffs of its own. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said China's role in the fentanyl crisis was a major reason behind the tariffs. That's good for us to keep in mind, folks, that this fentanyl crisis is not just happening at our own borders, but certainly seems like China could be behind some of it. Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, said, quote, "This is a drug war, not a trade war." And that's, of course, in reference to Trump's recent tariffs on Mexico and Canada. So it's going to be interesting to see here, folks. You know, we talk a lot about how to kind of mirror itself, doesn't always repeat itself, but it does mirror itself. And we're only about 30-something years away from having exited a Cold War that lasted for 45 years. And some people have referred to it as sort of the actual World War III that never really came to pass between the United States and Soviet Union. Well, unfortunately, folks, we do have now our newest Cold War foe, and we're seeing the Cold War now on display in multiple arenas. Economics will be one of them. Tech will be another one. Think DeepSeek from last week. And it will be vital during the Trump administration, I think, to try to keep relations with our Cold War foe in China as warm as possible. And so we'll see if that can continue. One thing that gives me confidence, I think hopefully it does for you too, Trump does seem to have the respect of world leaders. You know, love him or hate him, even the ones who don't like us, it seems like they at least have respect for him. This was something that was missing during the Biden administration, where it just felt like that administration was, for the most part, a laughingstock. Seems like this administration just has a little bit more of a standing of respect on the world stage. So that meeting was yesterday. So that's kind of what we're looking like here on the world stage, folks. We also saw an interesting headline, saw this one. Voters think tariffs will hurt the economy. So that's coming from a Fox News poll. Found 50% of registered voters think tariffs will hurt the economy, while 32% believe that they will help. Among Republicans, 55% think they'll help. 23% said that they hurt. So we're going to have to wait and see how all of these things will happen as they come out and as they go along here. But that's what we're looking like here, folks, this morning. Brian with a great question from Missouri. Why is our government spending hundreds of millions of our taxpayer dollars, sending our taxpayer dollars, rather, to other countries to promote the LGBTQ nonsense? Brian, that is a good question. And by the way, we've been seeing a whole lot of necessary revealing of these U.S. aid dollars going to really things that are nonsensical. I saw one thing on Twitter this morning saying, I think the Clinton family got like $84 million or something like that. $84 million to one family. Pretty crazy just to think about that. But, you know, I do hope that this administration can do the necessary work of trimming. And I'm excited for what I'm seeing, folks. I really am excited for it. Speaking of some exciting things, we did see yesterday a fantastic move in favor of the protection of women, where Trump, of course, basically banished men pretending to be women from playing in women's sports. I think this is a wonderful move, and I think this is necessary, obviously. I have a daughter of my own, and it's just so fascinating, folks, to hear, you know, people say things like, oh, you know, Trump is such an anti-woman candidate and all that other stuff. And then to see he's actually doing the exact things needed to protect women. Like, here's one example. Maybe keeping dangerous criminals out of the country and sending them back to their own country so that they don't rape our daughters and wives. Or maybe keeping men out of women's bathrooms and locker rooms. Those are really good things for women. I think the left maybe needs to hear that a little bit. So good news there anyway, folks. I'm told in my ear that we do have Shana back, I think. Sam, am I correct in that? Let's see if we got her. Shana, can you hear us okay?
I can hear y'all.
There she is. Wonderful.
Boy.
Awesome. What a journey that
Monday?
was. It's crazy. And we've got her on video, too. This is awesome. It's like Christmas morning. This is great. Well, Shana, the floor is yours.
Well, good. I guess I got about 45 seconds.
Yeah, there you go. Until the end of the segment.
I did hear you talking about the U.S. aid things that are being uncovered, and it is just absolutely
it's nonsense.
Sickening. I mean, $50 million for condoms in Gaza?
Boy, we sure need that, don't we? Unbelievable.
I mean, come on,
just
people.
Crazy.
It's sickening.
Just crazy.
It really is.
I know.
Well, there's the music. We got to take a break. Our phones are open. If you want to get your call queued up, it's 610-363-1110. Hang with us. We'll be back right after this break.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
We believe in being faithful stewards of what God has entrusted to us, and nothing is more important than investing in the next generation. The most impactful way to do this is by sharing the message of Jesus with young people. Crossroads Kids Club is an after-school program that brings the gospel to elementary school children in public schools nationwide. Together, we can make a lasting difference for the kingdom. To learn more and join the movement, visit reachOurschools.com. Again, that's reachOurschools.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana Burt. Thanks for sticking with us. Man, we had some rough technology issues this morning, but seems like all is well now. And the phone lines are open. If you want to test them out, the number is 610-363-1110. You'll be the first caller in the queue. And if you get your call queued up shortly, we'll get you right in. 610-363-1110. Our stewardship verse today, as Seth read earlier, came from Luke 19:26. I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Well, the accounting results of the managers revealed something much deeper than their ability to manage money in this parable that we read in Luke 19. So the results revealed their accounting results revealed what was in their hearts. The manager that failed miserably and returned only what he had been given to him also returned an excuse. The excuse was that he was afraid of the master and accused him of being harsh and that the manager didn't really know the master at all. Of course, the master in the parable points to the master to our master, God, Jesus. So it revealed what verse 14 says was the root of the issue. Verse 14 said, but his citizens hated him and said, we do not want this man to reign over us. So this verse is the conclusion or the moral of the story that there was a very bad outcome for those who rejected the master's authority. Verse 27 revealed their fate when it said to bring the unfaithful manager to him and kill him. Very bad, very bad outcome. Well, folks, shifting gears just a little bit. The Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that Google is the next company that will be dropping DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. That is good news. Surprising that Google is going to do that. But, as we talk about often here, the topic of DEI comes up. DEI is bad for business because it creates tension in the workplace. I don't personally know anybody who over the last, 4 or 5 years has enjoyed their diversity training. It's always been something that has been a real thorn in their sides, and it just really brings to the forefront issues that people don't need to be even talking about at work. More importantly, we've come, I think, in this country, we've come to a place where we're coming into agreement with God in this country that it's wrong to grant preferential treatment to some people over others for any reason, but in this case, based on the color of their skin. So we've seen news recently that Trump has eliminated DEI programs in the government. I think what Seth was talking about earlier, the U.S. aid, there was just millions and millions of billions of dollars for DEI programs all over the world, in Burma and just multiple countries. It's just all of these things going through my mind. It's just really just quite nauseating.
And, Shana, if I could share one really egregious one that I saw today, there was some U.S. aid funding to a group of, and they're connected with the Evangelicals for Harris. So these are professing Christians, and they were basically paid to promote left-leaning policies within the church, even in some historically conservative denominations like the SBC. It's ghastly what they did.
So I will say this, the radical left-wing Democrats that are protesting out there, were protesting out there in front of the Treasury, protesting Elon Musk, saying that, nobody elected him. I'm using nice words for what they said. It was just absolutely disgusting the way that they were acting about this. And I'll tell you this, it's an indictment on their character. I think the ones that are screaming the loudest and that are maddest is not a word, I guess, but most mad about all of this defunding of this U.S. aid, I have a feeling they're probably connected to some of that money in some way. So, I sort of think it's self-incriminating that they don't want the American people to have transparency and to know what our money is being spent on, because it might mean that some of them lose their jobs, and I hope that they do.
Amen.
But so we've seen this news recently that Trump has eliminated the DEI programs in government, and he's vowing just to simply hire people with the best qualification. Hey, there's a novel idea.
What an idea.
The best qualifications for the job gets you the job, regardless of the color of your skin or your gender. We're also seeing court rulings and multi-million-dollar judgments being awarded to people who suffered reverse discrimination due to certain companies' DEI policies. So in a Google email that was reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, the company said this, that they are, quote, evaluating changes to their programs required to comply. The email went on to say, Google has always been committed to creating a workplace where we hire the best people wherever we operate, create an environment where everyone can thrive, and treat everyone fairly. That's exactly what you can expect to see going forward, the email said. That was the email that was seen by the Wall Street Journal that came from Google. So you know who else hired, promoted, and fired based on ability rather than having DEI quotas? It was the manager in the parable of the minas in Luke 19. So, folks, one day we all will give an account of how we handled the treasure of this world. Now, one way that we can be found faithful with a little, faithful in our allegiance, proving that Jesus is our Lord and Savior, for what we profess to, is to prove with our actions that we love Jesus and that we love those who are His. So a very practical way that we can do this is to be faithful with a little. Did you know, and Seth, you're going to have to help me with the stat here, but is it $48 that could save? Is it 20?
So it's actually, it's $28 gets one ultrasound scan. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, Shana, but that one ultrasound scan can be the life-saving scan, because that one ultrasound scan could allow the mother to hear the heartbeat of their baby.
Right.
You know? So
and she could choose life for the baby.
That's right.
And then because she's there getting an ultrasound, she's going to hear the gospel message.
That's right.
And maybe she will choose eternal life for her. If the father's there, he's going to hear the gospel message as well. Maybe they will both choose eternal life and then bring that baby up in the fear and the admonition of the Lord. So souls, not money, is true treasure. So being faithful with a little bit here on earth translates into us being able to be trusted with much in eternal life. So we are in the midst of helping preborn with their Heartbeat campaign. Runs from this week and next week up to Valentine's Day. So would you be thoughtful and prayerful about what you could give, whether it's a little or a lot, to helping preborn fight the darkness of abortion and helping mothers and fathers to choose life for their babies and hopefully eternal life for themselves.
Amen.
All right, let's see. What do we have? Let's see if we can get to a question or two.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, Shana, this question actually just came in today from a listener, and they were asking, how does the process of moving out of a mutual fund through an exchange differ from selling an ETF, and why might this distinction be important when managing investments?
Okay, so when you purchase an ETF, ETFs are purchased like stocks. It's like a stock transaction. So you just buy so many shares or you sell so many shares. Typically, if you're operating on a discount brokerage platform, there is very little to no transaction fee to purchase a stock. So the same thing is true for an ETF. So you can just, buy or sell it if you want to get out of it. If you're in mutual funds, especially if you've purchased an A share, if you purchase an A share, then you've paid an upfront sales charge to get into the mutual fund position. Now, mutual funds are designed to be long-term investments, and if you hold that mutual fund for at least 5 to 10 years, the upfront cost of getting into that mutual fund in an A share is really spread out over time, and it can be a very cost-efficient way to invest, in a very hands-off way, because you're hiring professional managers to do so. So when you've paid an upfront sales charge to get into a mutual fund, and maybe you're doing a rebalance, or maybe you're shifting money from one fund to another, maybe a certain fund that you're in has done really well, and you're trying to rebalance your portfolio according to the asset allocation models. Well, if you're going into another fund in the same mutual fund family, so let's say that you're going from, the Timothy Israel Fund into the Timothy Large Cap Growth Fund, the way that you process that is you go into your transactions, and instead of selecting buy or sell for a particular mutual fund, you select exchange, and then it's going to pop up some fields that you can populate. And so it's going to ask you which fund do you want to go from and which fund do you want to go to, and it will usually let you, rather than select a number of shares, it'll let you select a dollar amount. And then what happens, as long as you're it won't let you exchange from one fund family to another. For example, it wouldn't let you exchange from Vanguard into Timothy Plan or something like that. It has to be, Timothy Plan to Timothy Plan. So it would just move your money from one of their mutual funds to the other, and that transaction would process on the close of business.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Shana. I think we can squeeze a quick one in here before the end of this segment.
Okay.
Doug is asking about the asset allocation model 65 to retirement. He's wondering, is it in the process of being updated? I noticed the rest of the asset allocation models have new dates on them, but this one still shows the last update from like 2 years ago. And he's the one who's using this one in his family.
Yes. So, yes, the asset allocation models are under review. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's going to be very, very huge changes, but we're trying to get those deployed once the new website becomes available, which reminds me, if you are a beta tester, get your feedback sent back in. We're trying to get the website, all of the kinks worked out and the bugs worked out. So we're in the final phases of that. So hopefully that will be soon. If we find out that there's issues that will delay it much longer, I'll find a way to get the new asset allocation models updated for you. Well, folks, if you're listening on an outlet that only carries the short version of the show, we encourage you to get our phone app so that you can get the show every day, all the show, and whenever you want it, whenever it's convenient for you. For everybody else, hang around. We'll be back with more financial issues right after this.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
So I was just getting on my feet and I met someone and how am I going to raise a baby? And I barely can take care of my daughter and myself right now. I Googled abortions and I scheduled an appointment thinking it was an abortion clinic. When I was at the clinic, after they told me how far along I was and that the baby had a heartbeat, I cried. And it gave me a minute by myself in the room. I broke down and I prayed to God. I asked the Lord to, when I walk out of those doors, to just give me the strength to be able to go through the pregnancy. Made my decision at that time. I'm super grateful that I'm able to go down this journey with my daughter. And I'm just super glad that I didn't have an abortion. I've learned how to trust God. It feels amazing.
Pharrell came to Crossroads as a fourth grader. His name had been brought to my attention by the school principal. She was concerned about the direction he was heading.
I remember I wasn't the best kid. I got into trouble a lot.
He became a very active part of Crossroads Kids Club.
Mr. Engel, he was the leader that really impacted my life in so many ways. I honestly didn't want Crossroads to end.
We would invite all the students to come to our youth group here at Waterfront.
I felt God saying, come on, come to me. It felt like I was set free.
And I'll never forget the day when we had the privilege and the honor to baptize Pharrell.
I hugged Mr. Engel. I don't know if he understands. I'm truly, thankful to have him through the whole journey. If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. I wouldn't be a follower of Christ.
Help reach more kids like Pharrell with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. It was wonderful to get Shana on there. Grateful for her. She'll be back tomorrow, of course, for the whole show. So make sure to get your calls queued up early tomorrow. But we're taking it from here and excited to be able to doing it with a little bit of less pressure on us as we were in the first segment, right, Sam? So this is good stuff here.
Yeah, a little hectic, but it keeps the blood flowing, makes you awake and alive.
Keeps you young. Absolutely. Hey, I do want to say also, from the bottom of my heart, I am so thankful for our audience. Sam and I were talking earlier in the show about the joy of getting to know your audience. I feel like I have a deep knowledge of each of you. Part of that is because you're so active on the chat, and I do think we really try to engage with you as well. The other part of it is I've had the privilege of meeting some of you and emailing with you and getting to do all that stuff, and it just seems like our show has a little bit of a different level of really knowing its audience, and boy, it's just a joy. And so for all of you who know us well and can see when things like what happened in the first segment happen, we're just so grateful for you. So thank you for your encouragement and sticking with us. And speaking of that, we want to get to some of those comments here right now. So Sam, let's do that here. What do we got from Robert in Texas? Robert had a question, came in yesterday.
Yes, sir. We got Robert here. He says, Governor Greg Abbott came to our small Christian private school last night. He's pushing to get the school voucher bill passed. What do you think about school vouchers?
Yeah, so great question there, Robert. First of all, let me just pronounce Texas as Governor Abbott pronounces it. Texas? He says
That's
Texas.
Right, Texas.
Texas, yeah. So I personally think, this is my opinion, I think that this could be really good. It seems to me, and Sam, feel free to chime in as well if you'd like, that school vouchers seem to give parents what seems like constitutional freedom to be able to choose the school of their choice for their child. That seems like common sense to me. I'm a fan of anything that allows for parents to not just have to stick their kids into government-funded education. I really do think that could be a very good thing. I have seen that this is coming about in several states. I don't think it's happening in Pennsylvania right now, but there are several other states across the country, probably between 15 and 20 states, where either they have laws passed or they're talking about it being passed. So I am a big fan of school choice and school freedom. I'm a big fan of parents having the freedom to be able to homeschool their kids if they want to. I was homeschooled, and there are many great advantages to it. We have many of the kids in the ministry who are also homeschooled or Christian schooled. Two great options there also. So I'm just, I think it is really good to be able to have that choice there.
I think there's so many good things you can say about the school voucher system. Honestly, Seth, the only people I know who don't like school vouchers are the teachers' unions. Not even the teachers themselves, but the union flunkies who know that their bread and butter is made by forcing kids to have to be tied to their school in their own school district and not really have any option and no competition as a result.
That's right. And you know what, folks? It all does come back to the money. The money talks. Sam, you said the teachers' unions. I've also seen that government-funded departments. I'm sure the Department of Education might be one of them. The National Education Association is another one that are not too pleased about this kind of stuff. I read on their website yesterday they had very negative things to say about school vouchers. It makes sense, because if this kind of stuff is allowed to happen, these people have less job security, less chance to be able to make some money off of the taxpayers. So, yeah, I'm a fan of it, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about DEI, right? The middle thing is equity. Well, this isn't equity. If you had school vouchers, you'd have true equality. You'd have equal opportunity for everyone. So even if you're a poor kid in the middle of a city somewhere, you can still go to a really good school if you want to. If you're gifted, if you're intelligent, you don't have to be stuck to some rotten school district you're stuck in just because you don't have enough money to move to go somewhere else. It truly is equal opportunity for everyone, regardless of your race, background, whatever. So I just don't get why people wouldn't be more for this.
For sure. Yeah, it's exactly right, man. And it's a good time as any to mention, folks, that public schools are a tough place. And the good news is, even in that necessary evil, there is still organizations that go into public schools and share the gospel, like our friends at Crossroads. So we are so grateful and want to lift up organizations like that go into these schools and bring the gospel in there. Even as we say at the same time, we are highly in favor of parents being able to have the freedom to not have to put their kids into public school. For many parents, that's the reality. They have to do it. But for the parents that really want to say, you know what, I want that freedom to be able to choose which school my children go to, I believe that's a constitutional right. I really do, and I think it's a good thing. So, yeah, that's a good question there, Robert, and I'm glad that you were able to see Governor Abbott. I'm wondering if you were able to meet him or if he just showed up there and spoke. So, very cool stuff there. So, Sam, what else do we have? I know we got one from Casey and I think Mickey. Is that Casey and Mickey?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's kind of a hyphenated name here. Maybe it's two people and they have a joint account.
Yeah.
They said, I'd like to open up a Roth IRA with a Christian company that allows me the freedom to do my own trading online. Does such a company exist?
Casey and Mickey, that's a great question. I know this question came in from social. I won't speak to your specifics of opening a Roth IRA, but I can tell you that I have not, and I don't think any of us at the ministry have seen a Christian company that exists. So I think what you're asking for is a Christian trading company.
That's what I think they were
That's
getting
what
at.
I think it is. Yeah.
I'm trying to read into the question a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they're asking, is there a Christian brokerage, like a Christian Fidelity?
A Christian Fidelity, a Christian Vanguard. To our knowledge, there's not. And I would encourage you not to fear. Don't worry about that. These companies like Vanguard, for example, not biblically responsible, but you are not investing in Vanguard if you choose to use them as your trading platform. You're using the good or service that they offer, which is allowing you to invest your money in publicly traded stocks that are biblically responsible. So we believe that that is okay to use. Don't worry. You could use one of those other ones. I wish there was one. And to my knowledge, there's not. I know Dan got this question a lot too. So perhaps that could be something that we could consider trying to, move forward, maybe creating
that's a need
something like that. That could be a need somewhere. Yeah. But my knowledge is there is not a Christian trading company. And if any of you know of one, please feel free to share one in the chat. But we do believe that while it would be great to have that, and we would absolutely love it, especially if they were biblically responsible like us, the reality is you're not going to compromise your biblically responsible conviction by using one of the other trading platforms.
Honestly, my recommendation for a trading platform is whatever one's just easiest for you to use. I use Fidelity, but that's because I had some previous accounts open with them, so I just happen to use them. Their interface is easy. That's not an endorsement per se of them, but that's just why I use them. So, that gives you a reason. I remember Dan said, he's like, I had people who said they like to use E-Trade because they like their commercials. That's okay.
Right, exactly. I've never heard of anyone choosing anything for the commercials. That's very interesting.
Shows advertising really does work from time to time.
Exactly. So Casey and Mickey, I hope that helps you there. That's great that you're thinking about that, though. And, of course, opening up that Roth IRA, that's awesome. Keep listening and keep asking questions for sure. We'd love to get to help you. Yep. So, folks, we got the Ag Report coming up here. I wanted to get to this great news as we're talking about DEI, but might have to wait till the next segment. But speaking of which, let's piggyback off something Shana talked about earlier in the program. Google scrapping their DEI hiring policies.
More than just Google, actually.
It's more than just Google, right?
The whole shebang.
The whole kit and caboodle, which means take that, YouTube. Take that. And I'm saying this on YouTube right now. And you know what? Who cares? Who cares? That's awesome. I think it's great news. I'm looking forward to, God willing, being able to have Twyla on YouTube and not have to cut the segment. Obviously, Sam and I were talking earlier in the show. This isn't like, it's snap of the fingers and everything's good. It's going to take a long process to clean the rats out of the ship, of course. But I do think that it is a step in the right direction. Of course, it doesn't mean the company is biblically responsible. Please don't take that at all. But this is just another one. Another company saying we're done with the nonsense and we're going to start moving in the right direction.
We had YouTube cancel for a little bit our FISM TV account because a pulled down video that we didn't have published of Donald Trump speaking at CPAC was hosted on our channel. You couldn't view it anywhere, but this was during the big ban of Donald Trump. So we sinned against the YouTube gods and they took us down for 2 weeks.
That's right. And as was so often the case in the Old Testament, those YouTube gods proved to be false and not conscious and not sentient and not even comparing to the one true God of the Bible. So it's good news there for sure. We'll talk a little more about this on the other side of the break, but we do have Craig Haugaard coming up here with the Ag Report. We'll be right back after this break. Stick with us.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for February 6th. Well, corn saw some sellings by speculators who are concerned over the potential impact of tariffs. The selling was in large part offset by continued strong export demand. In fact, during the session, the USDA announced the sale of 330,000 metric tons of corn to Mexico. U.S. sale commitments to Mexico are still ahead of their normal pace for this time of year. As a result, March corn was able to finish the day in positive territory, up $0.0125 at $4.93 93 1/4. Soybean futures took a step backwards on worries that the U.S.-China tariff tiff isn't getting resolved as quickly as the other tariff disputes. As a result, rumors about China canceling U.S. origin soybeans and rebooking Brazilian business for economic as well as tariff retaliation reasons circulated throughout the trade during yesterday's session. March beans ended the day 18 cents lower at $10.57 per bushel. China canceled wheat from Australia and cited the building of domestic stocks as the reason for the cancellation. U.S. markets looked at the weaker Chinese demand and the rerouted Australian wheat that's now looking for a home and took the market lower. Minneapolis March wheat was down 3 1/4 cents for the session at 6.18 1/2. Kansas City was 3 cents lower at 5.91 3/4, and Chicago dropped by 4 3/4 cents to settle at 5.72 1/4. Cotton futures closed 90 cents higher on Monday, but were 90 cents lower yesterday as March futures ended up right back where they'd started at 66.04. Livestock futures were higher straight across the board. We had April live cattle $2.65 higher at $201.30 per hundredweight. March feeder cattle were $2.47 1/2 higher, settling at $270.72 1/2 per hundred. And we had April lean hog futures $1.80 higher as they closed out the day at $91.55 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures inched higher when the closing bell finally sounded. March futures were up 8 points as they broke through the 20 barrier and were able to close at 20.01. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this are transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
What separates Crossroads Kids Club from other ministries to reach school-age children? What sets you guys apart?
First of all is our connection with local churches. We mobilize, equip, train, support local church partners. We're right inside the schools. There's a number of ministries that try to serve public school children outside of the school, but we're able to be right there on the campus. Another key thing is just our values. Our highest value is actually relationships. And so we're not a ministry that's driven by a lot of fancy technology or flashy stuff, but rather getting adults who love Jesus and who love kids to sit on the floor with a group of kids, to listen to them, to love them. So I would say the relational emphasis and the simplicity of the model is actually something that makes Crossroads special as well.
Help reach kids with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
I saw a great comment in the chat here, folks. Claude saying, Dan and Rush, 2 men I dearly miss. Boy, Claude, I am with you. I would love to hear a Dan rant and a Rush Limbaugh rant back to back on this new, hopefully a golden era in our country. I cannot imagine what that kind of rant would be like. That'd be awesome.
Maybe someone will post a supercut on YouTube now
on
that
YouTube,
they're probably going to allow that to happen.
Cut. That's right. That's right. That's good stuff. So thanks for that, brother. That's a great comment. It's good to see you guys on the chat today. Let's take a look at the markets, folks. We didn't do that in the last segment. They just opened 15 minutes ago or so. Dow Jones, everything's positive, slightly. The Dow Jones is up 1/10. The S&P 500 is up 1/3, roughly, more like 3/10. And the NASDAQ is up right around 1/4 of a percentage point. Oil creeping up a little bit from where it was earlier in the week, trending around $71.50 a barrel. The U.S. 10-year Treasury is hanging right around 4.44%. So that's what we're seeing there on Wall Street, on the markets today. All right, folks, so piggybacking off of what we talked about in that last segment, some really good news, of course. Alphabet is moving away from DEI in many ways, and also kind of piggybacking on what Shana said earlier. Sam, we've been hearing some really good things from our friend and ally in this fight, a man by the name of Robbie Starbuck, who's kind of come on the scene as sort of a human plot twist, as it were. What can you say about what he said recently?
It's kind of ironic, his name's Starbuck, too.
Isn't it? I know. When I first heard it, I thought, that's got to be fake. Like it has to be like a superhero title almost, you know?
Yeah, it's his middle name. Yeah.
Yeah, how about that? So, interesting.
You'd think, right? It's ironic. It's God's irony written into the world.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, what is Rob? Obviously, we've all been keeping an eye on what he's been doing, some of that great work of going inside to see what's happening with these companies. But he said some interesting things too. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I just want to share this with you guys because I think this reiterates some of the things that we've been saying, is that a lot of companies are probably pretty happy that Donald Trump is cracking down on DEI and that companies are feeling the conservative backlash about this stuff, because a lot of them don't really want to do it. So they're viewing it as a way out. He was talking to the magazine New York Next. He said, executives see this, that be the crackdown on DEI, as an opportunity to get away from these woke policies, because in reality, a competent CEO has realized that DEI has lost money. He said there's no return on investment of painting your business as political. And now that there are possible legal liabilities for violating civil rights law, that be Trump's new crackdown on this stuff, he said CEOs may not have wanted to confront these policies, but now they'll be forced to.
Boy, they sure will be, and many of them are. Absolutely. And I'm for it. I'm all for it. I love that. He really is. You know, Robbie's this human plot twist. Come on the seat. He's gone on this crusade to end corporate DEI, and he's doing some great work. So, Sam, I think the next big question in this story, because it's not over yet, we've seen a lot of victories. The tide has turned, much like the tide turned at Pelennor Fields when the Riders of Rohan came in for the Lord of the Rings fans out there. The next big question in the story is, how will the other side respond? How are the very powerful elites who started all of this nonsense in many ways, or maybe just kind of picked up on it over the last several generations, how are they going to counterpunch? Do they have a counterpunch, you think? Obviously, I'm asking a question that none of us can answer, but what do you think, Sam? Do you think that there's...
It's really tough to know, right? Yeah. Because we were talking about BlackRock a couple weeks back, and BlackRock is one of these bastions of DEI wokeness, and even they are moving away from some of this stuff. So, and that kind of threw us for a loop. Even Google, because I've been saying for a while that I'd be so surprised if Google ever backed away from this stuff, because as Robbie said, a lot of companies don't want to be involved in this. They're doing this because of political pressure. But based on public statements from Google, I always thought that they were maybe true believers in this woke ideology. Maybe that just shows they've been really good at pretending that they're into this stuff, but I don't know. So it really is quite the surprise, and it's hard to know where we're going from here, because it really looks like everyone is moving in this direction with a couple of holdouts, but not too many.
Absolutely. You know, the prayer, of course, is a true change of heart. Ultimately, the prayer is that these people would bow the knee to the Lord Jesus Christ. But we're talking about, perhaps from a lesser perspective, a change of heart from moving away from the DEI stuff. Hopefully, it's a permanent change. And Sam, the one concern I have, this is my one concern, is not that the work that so many on the conservative side have been doing isn't genuine. I think it is. I think the one concern that we have here is wondering, is everyone just caught up in the herd mentality? Is everyone just caught up in, okay, there's a new sheriff in town and he likes all this stuff and I want to stay in good graces somewhat with the powers that be. So if I'm Mark Zuckerberg, for example, I'll bow down for the next 4 years and I'm good with it. And then say, God forbid, another one of the elites gets elected president on the other side. Again, God forbid that happens, but if it does, I hope we wouldn't see a backswing there. But you have to think on some level we probably would.
I think that's right. Is that there would be some of that, right? Yeah. Because that would also represent a cultural shift in the populace. Yeah, so that would mean that we're all doing something wrong, that we're not continuing to apply enough pressure for this. And again, that's just not to say that we want these companies to go whatever the opposite direction of woke is and become super tyrannical in that way. We just want a neutral space. We don't want the right to become in so much power that they get lost in their own bubble and become corrupt themselves. We want this just to become a neutral playing field for everyone. So I really hope that is the case, but you're right. There is a real risk of this dying out just because people get bored with it and then the left reasserts itself. So let's not take these victories for granted and continue to press hard.
Absolutely.
And that's where BRI comes in too. This is part of the pressure campaign, and it's easy to rest on your laurels, rest on your victories, and say, yeah, we're winning. That means I can quit now. No, that means you need to try even harder and solidify your victories.
Absolutely. We had a level of intensity over the last 4 years because in many ways our backs were against the wall, and we had to. Got to keep that up. Our backs aren't against the wall anymore, but you have to keep that same level of intensity up. I agree 100%, man.
Yeah. I remember Donald Trump with the whole Bud Light thing a couple months ago. People got after him. I was glad they got after him too, because he said, I think Bud Light's suffered enough. Maybe we can let up on him. And thankfully, the base pushed back against him. As much as the base loves Donald Trump, they said, no, sorry, man, we love you, but you're wrong on this one. We got to keep applying that pressure until Bud Light really apologizes, which they really haven't done. They've backed off, but they've not come out and said, yeah, here's where we messed up.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to see that for sure. I think 2 lessons there, folks. 1, keep the pedal to the metal, just like Sam said. And 2, we got to be good stewards of our votes. We got to be willing to get involved with this stuff. It starts at the lower level. We got a midterm election coming up closer than we think. I think we might have some time here, but we got to keep an eye on those as well. And being a good steward of your vote, I think, is just so very important, because that's the natural checks and balances system in this country is the people. That we have the ability, by the grace of God, the way this country is made, to be able to make our voices heard and to fire our elected officials if we don't like what they're doing. So I would encourage you all to consider that. Sam, one more headline before we close the show today. Interesting, half of Americans are knowledgeable about their personal finances. Only half. Interesting here. What do you have for us?
Yeah, right. I wish we had a little bit more time for this, because this is really interesting. But only about half, according to Pew Research, just to repeat what you said, say that they know a great deal about their own personal finances. 33% say that they're somewhat knowledgeable about this stuff. When you break it down, 75% of Americans say they're pretty confident they can find their credit report. More than half are confident about creating a monthly budget. The same about creating a plan to pay off debt or saving money. But here's where I think the sticker is, and here's where financial issues can come to help. This is where a lot of people are saying they're not confident. Just 27% say that they are confident in their ability to create an investment plan to build wealth. What do you make of that, Seth? Because that sounds very accurate to me.
I think it does,
a lot of people feel good about, I understand how to save money, how to create a budget. I understand how credit cards work. But investment, for some reason, just feels like this whole other ball game for people. What do you make of that?
I think you're exactly right, Sam. I think the big thing is we are, as Shana and Jason talk about, in fact, I think they talked about this on Monday, we are naturally risk-averse people. So if there's risk involved, even the most courageous of us, even if you're one of those people that goes skydiving, that I would never do that, because it's just a little scary for me. But if you were one of those people, all of us have some level of risk aversion. Part of that's good. Part of that, we have a natural fear of danger. But I think part of that also can be really bad, because sometimes risk is good. Actually, a lot of times risk is good. And sometimes you have to take a risk in order to be able to succeed. In fact, I would argue that oftentimes, in order to be really successful, you have to be willing to take some risks. And I think that's part of it, Sam. I think a lot of people...
There's risk even in not taking risks.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think a lot of people just, because they're afraid of the risk, they don't have as much confidence to be able to create that plan. It's really interesting, Sam. I think a huge part of this, too, is being a good student of your money. So studying investing is a really good thing. Listening to this show is a really good thing. If you think about it from a successful marriage perspective, if you want to have a strong, loving, 60-plus year fruitful marriage with your spouse, you need to be the best student of your spouse in the world. You need to know them. You need to learn them. You need to ask questions about them. My wife reminds me of this all the time, that we still need to be learning about each other. I have been married to her for almost 9 years now, and I've barely scratched the surface, I feel like, of really knowing her deeply. I think I know her better than anyone else does. But boy, you have to continue to be a student of your spouse. It's the same with your finances. Your money matters. Your money matters, and you got to be able to be a good student of them. Now, it's a dance, of course, because your money also can't become an idol, but Your money's important, right? Like it's an important thing. Money makes the world go round. And so being able to understand that, if you're part of that 27% who don't have as much confidence in your investing, we can help you out. We can help you out. Being a good student of your money, one way that you can do that is listen to the show, ask questions, open a money market account, give it a whirl. If you feel like the partnership could be a benefit to you, consider that. But whether or not it is, ask questions. That's why we're here. So, yeah, it's really good stuff there. A good reminder, folks, of our purpose here to be able to help you honor God with the money that He has given you. Fun show today. Boy, it was an interesting one for sure, but we're grateful for it. God willing, we'll do it again tomorrow, folks, for our Friday show. Of course, Shana will be back. Make sure to get your calls queued up early. Until then, remember, everything you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with it. God bless you all.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.